They opened humanity's forgotten vault. Something inside was still alive. The dust of the moon called Kessig had not been touched by wind or rain in 10,000 years. It was a dead place, gray and silent, floating far from any sun that mattered. No ship came here without a reason, and the reason this time was a signal, a weak, old signal that should not have existed at all. Captain Elena Voss stood at the front window of her survey ship, the Wanderer's Hope, and looked down at the gray moon below. Her ship was not military. It was a small research vessel, built for mapping empty rocks and dead worlds, crewed by scientists and a few engineers who liked quiet work, far from the noise of the Alliance capital. Elena had chosen this job because she liked being far from people. She did not expect to find people down there, not after 10,000 years. Beside her stood Dr. Aaron Kell, a thin man with tired eyes, who had spent 30 years studying old ruins from a war that ended before the Alliance was even formed. He was the reason they had come to Kessig at all. "You are sure about the signal?" Elena said. It was not really a question. "I am sure it is real," Aaron said. "I am not sure what it means. The frequency is old, older than anything we use now. It matches patterns from the last records we have of old Earth, before the long silence." Elena frowned. The long silence was a phrase every child in the Alliance learned in school. Long ago, humanity had fought a terrible war among the stars, a war so destructive that entire fleets vanished, and whole colonies went dark. After that war, humanity went quiet for almost 1,000 years. When humans finally reached the stars again and met other species, they came in peace, small and careful, apologizing for a past nobody wanted to talk about. The other species of the Alliance, the calm Ithari, the careful Dorun, the clever Selvashi, had welcomed humanity, but they always treated humans a little differently. Not unkind, but watchful, like you would watch a dog that used to bite. Nobody liked to speak about what humanity had been before the long silence. Even human historians avoided it. The records were locked away, sealed by old laws that even the current Alliance government had never bothered to unlock. Whatever had happened back then, it was buried and meant to stay buried. And yet here was a signal from that exact time, coming from a moon that had no name in any modern star chart. "Could it be a beacon?" Elena asked. "Some kind of warning?" "Could be," Aaron said. "Could be a distress call. Could be nothing but old machinery still running on its last bit of power, calling out into the dark because nobody ever told it to stop." Elena looked at him. "You don't believe that?" Aaron gave a small, tired smile. "No, I don't." They took a shuttle down together, along with 2 Ithari scientists who had joined the mission, Silana and her younger colleague Vray. The Ithari were tall, pale blue-skinned people with large, thoughtful eyes, and they were famous across the Alliance for their patience and their caution. Silana had worked with Elena before, on a survey near the edge of Alliance space, and the 2 women trusted each other in the quiet way that people who have faced danger together often do. "You are worried," Silana said to Elena as the shuttle descended through Kessig's thin gray atmosphere. "I don't like surprises," Elena said, "especially old ones." "The old ones are often the most dangerous," Silana agreed, "but they are also the most interesting." The shuttle landed near the source of the signal, in a shallow valley, surrounded by broken gray rock. At first there was nothing to see but stone and dust. Then Vray, walking ahead with a scanner in his hand, called out, "Here, there is something here under the rock." They found it after 2 hours of careful digging with small tools, so as not to damage whatever lay beneath. It was not just an old machine, as Aaron had guessed it might be. It was a door. A massive door, built from a dark gray metal that none of their scanners could fully identify, half buried in stone, that must have fallen and covered it over centuries. The door had no handle, no visible controls. But carved across its face, in letters that had faded but not vanished, were words in old human script. Elena had to squint to read them, and even then she needed Aaron's help with a few of the older characters. Vault 7. Authorized personnel only. Contents, classified. Do not open. Below that, in smaller letters, almost worn away by time, if you are reading this, the war did not go well. Nobody spoke for a long moment. The wind, thin as it was on Kessig, made a low sound over the broken rocks. "A vault," Elena said quietly, "from before the long silence. This must be 100 years older than anything we have on record, Aaron said, his voice full of the kind of excitement that scientists get when they find something that could rewrite the history books. Elena, this could tell us everything. What happened to humanity back then? Why the records were sealed? Why we went silent for 1,000 years? Silana's large eyes studied the door carefully. It says not to open it. It also says the war did not go well, Vray added. Perhaps that is exactly why we should not open it. Elena felt the same unease that Silana and Vray clearly felt, but she also felt the pull of the mystery, the same pull that had brought them across 100 light-years to this dead moon. She thought about her orders, about the Alliance Council that had approved this expedition, about the promise she had made to report back anything of historical value. We're not opening it today, Elena decided. We scan it. We record everything. We send a report back to the Alliance Historical Council and let them decide. It was the right decision. It was also, as it turned out, a decision that did not matter, because 2 nights later, while the ship's small crew slept, the vault door opened on its own. It happened without any warning. The night watch officer, a young man named Toby Ashwin, was monitoring the sensors from the ship when the readings from the surface site suddenly changed. Power levels that had been flat and dead for 10,000 years spiked upward. Something inside the vault had woken up. Toby called Elena immediately. Within 20 minutes, a small team was back on the surface, standing in the cold dark, watching as the massive door that had refused to move for 2 days of careful, gentle attempts now slid open on its own, silent and smooth, as if it had only been waiting for the right moment. Behind the door was a corridor, lit by a dim blue light that had no obvious source. The air that came out was cold and smelled faintly of something metallic, almost like old blood, though nobody wanted to say that out loud. This should not have power, Aaron whispered, staring at the light. There is no way anything down here still has power after 10,000 years. Unless it was never meant to run out, Silana said. Elena drew her sidearm, more out of habit and training than any real belief that it would help against whatever lay ahead. Vray, stay with the shuttle. If anything happens, you get back to the ship and you warn them. Understood? Vray, clearly relieved, nodded quickly. Elena, Aaron, and Silana stepped into the vault. The corridor went deep into the rock, further than the surface scans had suggested. Along the walls were rows of what looked like old storage units, some broken open and empty, their contents long turned to dust. Others remained sealed, dark screens on their fronts showing faint status lights, still glowing after 10 millennia. This is not just a bunker, Aaron said as they walked. Look at the design. This is a stasis facility, a place built to keep something, or someone, alive for a very long time. They found the source of the power spike at the end of the corridor, in a large round chamber with a domed ceiling. In the center of the chamber stood a single cylinder, tall as a person, its surface covered in frost despite the vault's otherwise dry air. Lights along its base blinked steadily, no longer at the slow pulse of standby power, but at the fast, urgent rhythm of something waking up. Through the frosted glass, they could just make out a shape. A human shape. There's someone in there, Elena said, her voice barely above a whisper. Aaron, is that? I don't know, Aaron said, staring at the readouts on a nearby panel, readouts in old script that he was struggling to translate quickly enough. The system says, stasis integrity at 91%, vital signs detected. Elena, whoever is in there, they might still be alive. Silana's large eyes were fixed on the cylinder. 10,000 years, she said softly. How is that possible? Nobody had an answer. The frost on the glass was beginning to melt, running down in slow streaks, and through the clearing glass they could see more clearly now. A face, pale and still, eyes closed, looking almost peaceful despite the impossible amount of time that must have passed. We need to call the ship, Elena said, her training finally cutting through her shock. We need medical support, and we need to tell the Alliance Council what we've found. This is, Aaron, this is bigger than any of us. But even as she reached for her communicator, the panel beside the cylinder let out a sharp chime, and new words appeared on the old screen, translated automatically by Aaron's device into modern Alliance script. Stasis release in progress. Warning. Subject classification. Project Ironheart. Handle with extreme caution. The cylinder's frost was almost gone now. The eyes behind the glass, they all saw at the same moment, had begun to move beneath closed lids. Something inside the vault, buried for 10,000 years and forgotten by all of history, was waking up. And none of them, not Elena, not Aran, not Silana, had any idea what Project Ironheart had been built to do, or why the people who sealed this vault had been so afraid of it that they buried it on a moon with no name, and warned, in the last words they carved into the door, that the war had not gone well. The chamber filled with a low hiss as the cylinder's seal began to break. Elena raised her weapon without quite deciding to, and beside her, she heard Silana take a slow, careful step back. Whatever was about to open its eyes, it had been asleep since before the long silence began. It had been asleep since the last days of a war that humanity had tried so hard to forget that they had erased it from their own history. Now it was waking up, and it was waking up on a research team's watch, 10,000 years and 100 light years from anyone who might have known what to do about it. The cylinder's glass door slid open with a soft mechanical sigh, and the cold air of the chamber rushed in around the figure inside. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the figure's chest rose with a slow, deep breath, the first breath it had taken in 10,000 years. Its eyes opened. The eyes that opened were a plain, ordinary brown. That was the first thing Elena noticed, and somehow it surprised her more than anything else. She did not know what she had expected. Something glowing, maybe, or something inhuman. Instead, she saw a tired, confused human face, blinking against a dim blue light it had not seen in 10,000 years. The figure in the cylinder was a woman. She looked young, perhaps 30 years old, though Elena knew that meant nothing after 10 millennia of stasis. Her hair was dark and cut short. She wore a simple gray bodysuit, plain except for a small patch on the shoulder, with a symbol none of them recognized. A circle with a jagged line through it, like a heartbeat on an old medical monitor. The woman's legs gave out the moment she tried to step from the cylinder, and Aaron moved forward without thinking, catching her before she hit the floor. She was lighter than he expected, and cold, so cold that he could feel it even through his suit. "Easy," Aaron said softly, though he had no idea if she could even understand him. 10,000 years was a long time. Languages changed. "Easy, you're safe." The woman's eyes moved slowly across the room, taking in Aaron's face, then Elena, then Silana. When her gaze reached Silana, something changed in her expression. Not fear exactly, but a sharp, sudden focus, the look of someone whose training had kicked in before their mind had fully caught up. "Alien," the woman said. Her voice was rough, unused, but the word was clear. Old Earth English, close enough to modern Alliance standard that Aaron could understand it without his translator. She's a friend," Aaron said carefully. "We're not enemies. Nobody here means you any harm." The woman's eyes narrowed, studying Silana with the wary look of a soldier assessing a threat. "The Chorvaxi didn't have blue skin," she muttered, half to herself. "Or maybe they changed. How long?" She stopped, pressing a hand to her head. "How long was I under?" Nobody wanted to answer that question. Finally, it was Elena who spoke, kneeling down so she was at eye level with the woman. "My name is Elena Voss. I'm a captain in the Alliance Survey Corps. This is Dr. Aaron Kell, and this is Silana, a colleague from the Athari Compact." Elena paused, choosing her next words carefully. "You've been in that stasis chamber for a very long time. Based on what we've found, it looks like roughly 10,000 years." The woman went very still. 10,000 years? She repeated, as if testing the words in her mouth to see if they could possibly be true. "Yes," Elena said gently. The woman closed her eyes. For a moment, Elena thought she might be about to break down, to cry, to scream, any of the things a person might reasonably do after learning that everyone and everything they had ever known was 10,000 years gone. Instead, when the woman opened her eyes again, there was something hard and steady in them. "Then the war is over," she said. It wasn't a question. "Which war?" Aaron asked carefully. The woman looked at him like he had asked a strange question. "The war with the Chorvaxi. The Great Collapse War. Is it over? Did we win?" Aran and Elena exchanged a look. Neither of them had ever heard the name Chorvaxi before. It was not in any history book, not in any record from the long silence era that the Alliance had ever recovered. We don't know that name, Elena admitted. The war you're talking about, it happened before what we call the long silence. After that war, humanity went quiet. We lost contact with the rest of the galaxy for about 1,000 years. When we came back, we found the Alliance. Species like Silana's people. We don't have complete records of what happened before the silence. Most of it was sealed, lost, or hidden. The woman absorbed this slowly, her jaw tight. Sealed, she repeated. Of course it was. Can you tell us your name? Aaron asked. The woman hesitated, and for a moment, Elena thought she might refuse. Then she straightened her back, some old habit of discipline taking over despite everything. Captain Mira Sato, Special Operations, Project Ironheart, Human Defense Coalition. The name Ironheart, still glowing faintly on the panel readout behind her, made Elena's stomach tighten. What was Project Ironheart? Silana asked. It was the first time she had spoken since the cylinder opened, and her voice was calm, careful, the voice of someone trying very hard not to sound afraid. Mira looked at her for a long moment. You really don't know, she said quietly. You really don't know any of it. No, Elena said. We don't. Mira let out a long breath, and something in her posture sagged, just slightly, the weight of 10,000 years pressing down on her all at once. Then I have a lot to explain, she said, and you're not going to like most of it. Over the next hour, in the cold blue light of the vault chamber, with Ray finally allowed to join them and record everything on his datapad, Mira told them what she remembered. She spoke slowly at first, her voice rusty with disuse. But as she continued, the memories seemed to come back to her more easily, as though they had been waiting patiently inside her for 10,000 years, ready to spill out the moment someone asked. Humanity, she explained, had not always been the small, careful, apologetic species that Elena and the others knew. In the era Mira came from, humanity had been expanding rapidly across a small corner of the galaxy, using technology that Mira herself did not fully understand the origins of. Technology, she said, that some believed had been reverse-engineered from something humanity was never meant to find. Whatever the truth was, humans had grown powerful very quickly, and that speed had made other species afraid. The Chorvaxi, Mira said, were an old and proud species, rulers of a large territory, that human expansion had begun to threaten. When talks failed, the Chorvaxi attacked, expecting an easy war against a young, disorganized species that had only recently learned to build starships. They had badly misjudged humanity. We didn't fight fair, Mira admitted, her eyes distant. We didn't have the numbers, or the fleets, or the old alliances the Chorvaxi had. So we fought smart. We fought mean. Every weapon we had, every trick, every soldier willing to do things that most species wouldn't do. We didn't win because we were strong. We won because we were willing to pay any price. Won? Aaron asked quietly. You said the war didn't go well. The words on the door. Mira's expression darkened. We won the war against the Chorvaxi. It took 20 years, and it cost us almost everything. Whole colonies gone, billions dead, but we won. The problem was what came after. What came after? Elena asked. After the Chorvaxi surrendered, other species started paying attention to us, Mira said. They'd been watching from a distance, letting the Chorvaxi and humanity wear each other down. Once we won, once they saw what we were capable of and how far we'd go to survive, some of them decided humanity was too dangerous to exist as a free power. A group of them, I don't have all the details, this happened while I was already in stasis for a mission. A group of them formed a pact and attacked us directly. Not to conquer us, to end us. The chamber was silent, except for the faint hum of the old machines. Project Ironheart was the Coalition's last resort program, Mira continued. Soldiers like me, put into deep stasis in hidden vaults across our territory, meant to be woken up only if the Coalition's government fell, and someone needed to continue the fight, or needed to make sure whatever came next understood what humanity was capable of, so they wouldn't try to finish the job. How many of you were there? Silana asked. How many vaults? Mira looked at her steadily. I don't know. That was need to know, and I never needed to know. Could be a dozen, could be 100. But if I woke up, if this vault opened, It means whoever put me here believed there was no one left to open it on purpose. It means the door only opens on its own when the last human government tied to this vault's network has been gone long enough. She looked around the chamber, at the dust and the frost, at the sealed doors of the neighboring stasis units, silent and dark. 10,000 years, she said softly. That's not a war that ended. That's a war we lost so badly that everyone forgot it happened at all. Elena felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold air of the vault. The alliance we're part of now, it's not the same as whatever came after your war. The alliance was formed a long time after the silence ended. It's peaceful. Humanity is a respected member. There's no war. Mira's eyes fixed on her, sharp and searching. Respected, she repeated. Or tolerated. There's a difference, Captain Voss, and I learned that difference the hard way. A long time before I ever got into that cylinder. Elena didn't have an answer for that. Aaron cleared his throat gently. Mira, I need to ask. The vault records mentioned other stasis units in this facility. Some of them show as empty. Do you know what happened to them? Mira's face tightened, just slightly. Some of them would have been backup units, never filled. Emergency capacity in case more soldiers needed to be placed. But if some show as opened and empty, she trailed off, her eyes moving toward the darkened corridor beyond the chamber. Then someone else already woke up, maybe a long time ago, maybe recently. The four of them stood in silence, the weight of that thought settling over the chamber. Somewhere out there, in the vast dark of the galaxy, there might be others like Mira. Soldiers built and trained for a war that had ended 10,000 years ago. Soldiers who had no idea that the war was over, that the coalition that made them was long gone, that the galaxy had moved on and built something new out of the ashes. We need to report this to the Alliance Council, Elena said finally, her voice steady, despite the storm of thoughts running through her mind. All of it. The vault, Project Ironheart, everything you've told us. Mira's jaw tightened. And what happens to me after that report goes out, Captain? Because in my experience, when governments hear the words super soldier and ancient weapon program in the same sentence, things don't usually go well for the soldier. I won't let anything happen to you, Elena said, surprising even herself with how quickly and how firmly she said it. Mira studied her for a long moment, as if trying to decide whether that promise was worth anything at all. Finally, she gave a small, tired nod. All right, Captain. I'll trust you. For now. Her eyes drifted once more toward the dark, empty stasis units lining the walls of the vault. But we need to find out what happened to the others. Because if even one of them woke up angry, or scared, or convinced the war is still going. She paused, choosing her words carefully. Then your peaceful little alliance is about to find out exactly what humanity used to be capable of, and it will not be a gentle lesson. Outside, on the surface of Kessig, Vray's communicator suddenly crackled to life, catching a faint signal from somewhere deep beneath the rock, farther into the mountain than any of their scans had reached. It was the same frequency that had first drawn them to this dead moon, but now there was a second signal joining it, then a third, blinking awake one by one across old sensor logs, as if something in the vault network itself was slowly, silently, coming back to life. Elena's communicator buzzed. It was Toby, calling down from the ship, his voice tight with a mixture of excitement and fear. Captain, you need to see this, he said. We're picking up dozens of new signals across the system. Not just from this moon. From at least 6 other locations in this star system alone. And Elena, some of them are moving. The Wanderer's Hope was not built for a crisis like this. It was a survey ship, meant for mapping dead rocks and taking quiet readings of empty space. And its small crew of scientists and engineers had never trained for anything more dangerous than a broken airlock or a bad storm on a survey world. Now Elena stood on the bridge, looking at a star map filled with blinking red markers, and she felt the full weight of just how unprepared they all were. 6 locations, Toby said, pointing at the map. 3 more moons in this system, like Kessig. 2 asteroids, with old structures buried inside them. And one, he hesitated. One signal that's already moving, Captain. Fast. It left its position 4 hours ago and it's heading toward the outer edge of the system. Mira leaned over the console, studying the map with the focused calm of a soldier reading a battlefield. She had changed into a spare uniform from the ship's stores, and though she still moved a little stiffly, 10,000 years of stasis showing in every careful step. There was nothing weak about the way she studied the readouts. "That's a ship," she said. "Not a stasis vault. A ship woke up and left." "Can you be sure?" Aran asked. "The signature matches old Coalition drive cores," Mira said. "I flew ships with that exact power signature before I went under. If one of my people woke up and found a functioning vessel, the first thing Coalition training would tell them to do is get off the ground, get eyes on the wider situation, and report back to command." She paused, her expression grim. "Except there's no command left to report to, not one they'd recognize." "What would someone in that position do next?" Silana asked quietly. Her people's calm was a hard thing to keep in a room full of nervous humans, but Elena could see the tension in the way Silana's long fingers gripped the edge of the console. "Depends on the soldier," Mira said. "Depends on their training, their unit, how long they were under, what they find when they wake up. Some would try to make contact, carefully, the way I did with you. Others—" She stopped. "Others what?" Elena pressed. Mira's jaw tightened. Ironheart wasn't the only program. There were other divisions, deep strike units, sabotage teams, people trained to assume that if they woke up, it meant everything had already gone wrong, and the only safe move was to treat everyone as a potential enemy, until proven otherwise. She looked at Elena directly. "If one of those units woke up first, on a ship, with weapons, they are not going to sit quietly and wait for someone to explain the last 10,000 years to them." The bridge went very quiet. "We need to warn the Alliance," Elena said. "Immediately. Full report, everything we know, and a warning that there could be an armed, confused, 10,000-year-old soldier flying loose in this system. They won't believe it," Aaron said. "Not without proof." "Then we send proof," Elena said, already moving toward the communication station. "Mira, Silana, I need you both on this call. Mira, because you can explain what we're dealing with better than anyone alive. Silana, because when the Alliance Council hears a human recount all this, they're going to want an outside voice they trust to confirm it isn't some kind of trick." Silana nodded slowly. "I will vouch for what I have witnessed, but Elena, you should prepare yourself. Some on the Council have always been uneasy about humanity's past. This will not calm those fears. It may do the opposite." Elena knew she was right. But there was no version of this where staying silent was the safer choice. The call to the Alliance Council took almost 6 hours to connect properly, routed through relay stations, and translated through layers of bureaucratic protocol that Elena found herself cursing under her breath more than once. When the connection finally opened, the holographic display on the bridge lit up with the images of a dozen council members from a dozen different species, their faces ranging from mild curiosity to open alarm, as Elena began her report. She told them everything. The signal, the vault, Mira, Project Ironheart, the Chorvaxi War, the Great Collapse War, the pact of species that had tried to end humanity after the fighting stopped, and now, the 6 new signals, one of them already moving, all of them waking up after 10,000 years of silence. When she finished, there was a long pause on the other end of the connection. It was a Dorun counselor, a broad-shouldered being, with rough gray skin and small sharp eyes, who spoke first, and his tone was not friendly. "You are telling us," he said slowly, "that there exists a network of hidden facilities, scattered across Alliance-adjacent space, filled with ancient human super-soldiers built for total war, and that this network has just activated?" "That is correct, Counselor," Elena said. "And you brought one of these soldiers onto your ship." "She woke up and asked for help," Elena said firmly. "She has been fully cooperative. I trust her." "You have known her for less than a day," the Dorun counselor said. Mira stepped forward into the camera's view before Elena could respond. Her voice, when she spoke, was calm and even, but there was steel underneath it. "Counselor, my name is Mira Sato. 10,000 years ago, I was a soldier fighting to keep my species from being erased by a pact of frightened neighbors. I have been asleep since before your alliance existed. I woke up in a chamber full of strangers, on a moon I did not recognize, having lost everyone and everything I ever knew, and my first act was not to attack anyone. It was to answer honestly every question these people asked me." She paused. "I understand your fear. I have seen what fear does to a galaxy before. But if you want to know what kind of person I am, judge me by what I do next, not by what my ancestors were forced to become in order to survive." The council chamber was silent for a long moment. Finally, an Athari counselor, an elder with pale lavender skin and calm, deep-set eyes, spoke. "Silana," the elder said, "you have worked with Captain Voss before. What is your assessment?" Silana straightened. "I have observed Mira Sato for several hours in close proximity. She has been honest, controlled, and cooperative at every step, even when given every reason and opportunity to be otherwise. I do not believe she is a threat to this council. I believe the greater danger lies in the unknown status of the other awakened individuals, and in how this council chooses to respond to them." The elder nodded slowly. "Then we must act quickly, and carefully. Captain Voss, your ship will remain at Kessig to monitor the situation, and Alliance Security will dispatch additional vessels to the system. As for the moving signal, Councillor Threx, your fleet has assets nearby, does it not?" The Doruan councillor's expression hardened further. "We can intercept the vessel within 2 days, if it proves hostile." "If it proves hostile," Mira interrupted, "then you send someone who understands how a coalition-trained soldier thinks, before you send someone who only knows how to shoot." "Counselor, I am asking you, let me come with your fleet. Let me try to talk to whoever is on that ship before your soldiers decide the only answer is force. If it is one of mine, I might be the only person in this galaxy who can reach them without a fight." The council chamber fell into a tense, uncertain silence. Elena watched the faces on the display, watched the careful, calculating way each species weighed the request. She thought of the words carved into the vault door. "If you are reading this, the war did not go well." She thought about how easily fear could turn into the exact violence everyone was trying to avoid. "Councillor Threx," the Athari elder said finally, "I recommend you accept Miss Sato's offer, under close guard, of course. It seems to me the wiser risk." Threx's sharp eyes studied Mira through the display for a long moment, before he gave a short, reluctant nod. "Very well, she comes with the fleet, but she remains under guard the entire time, and if she makes one move I judge to be a threat, my soldiers will not hesitate." "Understood," Mira said simply. The call ended soon after, with plans set in motion. Alliance ships converging on the system, a fleet preparing to intercept the moving vessel, and Elena's own crew ordered to hold position at Kessig and continue monitoring the vault network for further activity. When the display went dark, the bridge felt heavier than before, the silence thick with everything that had just been decided. "You didn't have to volunteer for that," Elena said quietly, turning to Mira. Mira looked out at the star map, at the small red marker representing the moving ship, still crawling steadily toward the edge of the system. "Yes, I did," she said, "because I know exactly what kind of person wakes up alone after a war they don't know they lost, surrounded by strangers who look like the enemy. I was that person 12 hours ago. If it's someone like me on that ship, I owe it to them to be the first face they see that isn't holding a weapon." "And if it's not someone like you?" Aaron asked carefully. "If it's one of the other kind, the ones you said were trained to assume everyone is an enemy?" Mira's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes grew colder, more distant, as though she were looking back through 10,000 years, at memories she had hoped never to need again. "Then I will do what I was trained to do," she said quietly, "and I will pray to whatever is left listening, that it doesn't come to that." Outside the ship's viewport, the gray moon of Kessig turned slowly beneath them, its ancient vault standing open to the stars for the first time in 10,000 years. And somewhere out in the dark, 5 more signals waited, silent and patient, for someone to come and find out what else humanity's forgotten war had left behind. The Alliance fleet that gathered near Kessig 2 days later was larger than anything Elena had ever seen in person. Doruan battle cruisers, heavy and gray, moved in slow formation, beside sleek Athari science and defense vessels, their hulls glowing faintly with soft blue running lights. Smaller Selvashi scout ships darted between the larger vessels, fast and nervous, like fish moving around whales. At the center of it all sat the Alliance flagship Providence, a vessel so large that the Wanderer's Hope looked like a toy drifting beside it. Mira stood at the viewport of the shuttle taking her to the Providence, flanked on either side by 2 Doruan soldiers in heavy armor. She had not complained about the guard. She understood it, even respected it. though Elena could see the tension in her shoulders as the massive fleet grew larger in the window ahead. "It's strange," Mira said quietly, more to herself than to anyone else. "In my time, a fleet this size would have taken years to build, and it would have been meant for war. Just war. Nothing else." She looked at the mix of ship designs, the different colors and shapes belonging to different species, all working together under one banner. "This is different. This is a fleet built by people who trust each other." "Most of the time," Elena said, standing beside her. "It's not perfect, but it's better than what you knew." Mira gave a small, tired smile. "That's not a high bar, Captain. But I'll take it." The moving vessel, the one Mira had identified as an old Coalition warship, had been tracked to the far edge of the star system, drifting slowly near an empty patch of space, close to a small, cold planet with no name. Alliance scouts had approached carefully, keeping their distance, watching the ship's old but still functioning sensors sweep the area in slow, methodical patterns. The ship had not fired on anyone. It had not even responded to hails. It simply sat there, waiting, its weapon systems powered, but not aimed at anything. "That's discipline," Mira said, when she reviewed the scout reports aboard the Providence. "Whoever's flying that ship isn't panicking. They're gathering information first. That's good. That means we're dealing with someone trained, not someone desperate." "Is that better or worse?" asked Admiral Threx, the Doruan counselor, from the earlier call, now standing on the Providence's bridge in full uniform, his expression still guarded whenever his eyes moved toward Mira. "Better," Mira said firmly. "Desperate people do desperate things. Trained people can be reasoned with if you approach them the right way." "And what is the right way?" Threx asked. Mira thought for a moment. "Send me in alone. One small shuttle, no weapons, no escort. Let me hail them first, on an old Coalition emergency frequency. If they're Ironheart, or any of the sanctioned defense programs, they'll recognize the frequency and the protocol. It will tell them, before anything else does, that I'm one of them." Threx's jaw tightened. "Alone. Unarmed. Do you understand what you're asking, Miss Sato?" "I understand exactly what I'm asking," Mira said, "because I understand exactly what's on the other side of that hail. A frightened, confused person holding a weapon, surrounded by strangers who don't speak their language and don't know their history. The last thing that person needs is a fleet of foreign warships creeping closer. The only thing that might actually work is one familiar voice, speaking words they recognize, in a way that doesn't threaten them." Elena stepped forward. "Admiral, I'll go with her. Not armed, not as backup, as a witness, someone who can report back exactly what happens, so the Council has more than one account." Threx studied both women for a long moment, his sharp eyes weighing the risk. Finally, he gave a short nod. "One shuttle. No weapons. And if anything goes wrong, I will not risk this fleet to save you. Is that understood?" "Understood," Elena and Mira said together. The shuttle ride toward the drifting warship felt like the longest 20 minutes of Elena's life. Mira sat calmly at the controls, her hands steady despite everything, while Elena watched the old Coalition vessel grow larger in the front window. A long, sharp-angled ship, its hull dark and pitted from age, patches of frost still clinging to sections that had clearly not yet fully warmed after their long sleep. Weapon emplacements along its sides tracked the shuttle's approach, slow and deliberate, but did not fire. "Here goes," Mira murmured, and opened a channel on the old emergency frequency. "This is Captain Mira Sato, Ironheart Division, Human Defense Coalition. Authorization code Delta 79 Ironclad," she said, her voice steady and clear. "I am approaching unarmed, in a single shuttle, requesting contact. If you can hear this transmission, please respond." Static answered for a long, tense moment. Then, crackling and rough, a voice came through the speakers. A man's voice, wary and tight with tension. "Delta 79 confirmed. Sato, is that really you? Command records had you assigned to the Kessig Vault." A pause. "How long has it been?" Mira closed her eyes briefly before answering. 10,000 years, soldier. Give me your name and rank." Another long pause. When the voice came back, it had lost some of its edge, replaced by something closer to disbelief. "Lieutenant Commander Dale Reyes, Deep Strike Division, 10,000 years." A shaky breath crackled over the comm. "Sato, is the Coalition still standing?" Command hasn't answered any of my hails. There is no more coalition, Dale, Mira said gently. There hasn't been for a very long time. But there's a new galaxy out here, and it's not what we left behind. I need you to trust me and let us come aboard, so I can explain everything face to face. The silence that followed stretched so long that Elena found herself holding her breath. Finally, the voice returned, quieter now, almost broken. All right, Sato. Come aboard. Just you and whoever's with you. And Sato, his voice cracked slightly. Please tell me it was worth it. Tell me we didn't lose. Mira glanced at Elena, her expression unreadable, before she answered. We survived, Dale. That's not nothing. Let's go talk. The docking was tense but uneventful. When the airlock hissed open, Elena found herself face to face with a man who looked to be in his late 30s, his uniform the same worn gray as Mira's had been, his eyes red-rimmed and wide with a mixture of exhaustion and disbelief. He held no weapon, though Elena noted the sidearm still holstered at his hip, and his hands trembled slightly as he looked at Mira. You look exactly the same, he said, his voice cracking. 10,000 years, and you look exactly the same. So do you, Mira said softly, stepping forward and gripping his shoulder. We're the same fools who went to sleep expecting to save the world. Turns out the world didn't need saving anymore. It moved on without us. Dale's eyes moved past her to Elena, taking in her Alliance uniform, her unfamiliar insignia, with the same wary caution Mira had shown when she first woke. Who's she? A friend, Mira said. Captain Elena Voss, Alliance Survey Corps. She's part of the reason I'm still breathing air right now instead of panicking in some empty vault. Dale, things have changed more than you can imagine. Humanity isn't alone out here anymore, and it isn't at war. There's a whole alliance of species now, working together. It's not perfect, but it's peace, Dale. Real peace. Dale's expression went through a dozen emotions in the space of a few seconds. Confusion, disbelief, something that looked almost like grief, and finally, a slow, cautious relief. He sank into a nearby seat, running a hand over his face. 10,000 years, he muttered again. Everyone I knew. Everyone. Gone. I know, Mira said quietly, sitting beside him. I know exactly how that feels, but you're not alone in it, Dale. I'm here. And there are others. More vaults woke up, all across this system. We're not the last two people from our world anymore. There might be a dozen of us, maybe more, all waking up to the same thing. Dale looked up sharply. Others. Do you know who? Not yet, Mira admitted, but we're going to find out. And when we do, I need you to help me make sure they get the same chance you just got. A friendly voice, a chance to understand what's happened, before anyone decides to be afraid of what we used to be. Elena watched this exchange in silence, feeling something shift in her understanding of the situation. This was not a threat to be neutralized, not some ancient weapon to be feared and contained. These were people, soldiers who had sacrificed everything, who had gone to sleep not knowing if they would ever wake up, only to open their eyes in a galaxy that had forgotten them entirely. Whatever humanity's ancestors had done in that long-ago war, whatever violence and desperation had built Project Ironheart and programs like it, the people living inside those old choices were still just people, frightened and lost, and trying to find their footing in a world that no longer had a place prepared for them. Dale, Elena said gently, drawing his attention. I know this is a lot to take in, but I promise you, the Alliance wants to help. There are people back on that fleet who are ready to listen, ready to make sure you and anyone else who wakes up gets a fair chance in this new galaxy. You're not enemies here. You're not weapons. You're survivors. Dale studied her for a long moment, his red-rimmed eyes searching her face for any sign of deception. Finally, he gave a slow, tired nod. All right, Captain. I'll trust Sato's judgment. If she trusts you, that's good enough for me. He paused, glancing toward the old warship's dark corridors stretching out beyond the small cabin. But we need to talk about the other signals, because Sato, before I found this ship, before I even reached the surface, I picked up transmissions. Old Coalition distress codes, automated, repeating on a loop from somewhere much further out in this system. His expression darkened. One of them was flagged Priority Omega. Sato, you know what that flag means. Mira's face went pale. Omega flag, she repeated slowly. Oh, That's not a soldier vault, Dale. That's a command bunker. A full military command structure, with everything that goes with it, including automated defense protocols that don't ask questions before they act. What does that mean? Elena asked, feeling a cold weight settle in her stomach. Mira turned to her, her expression grim and urgent. It means somewhere out there, there's a fully armed military installation about to wake up believing the war never ended, with authority to make decisions that override anything a single frightened soldier like Dale might do. She looked back toward the fleet gathered near Kessig, toward Threx's flagship glowing steadily against the black of space. We need to reach that installation before its automated systems decide the safest course of action is to treat every ship in this system as an enemy fleet. Because if that happens, Captain Voss, I promise you, it will not matter how peaceful your alliance has become. That bunker will remember only one thing: the war. And it will not stop fighting until someone makes it understand that the war is already over. The command bunker was buried inside a small, icy moon on the far edge of the system, a place so cold and dark that Alliance scans had originally marked it as nothing more than a dead rock, unworthy of attention. It was only when Dale shared the coordinates of the priority Omega signal that anyone realized the moon held anything at all. Admiral Threx did not like the plan Mira proposed. He said so plainly, standing on the bridge of the Providence with his arms crossed and his sharp eyes fixed on the star map showing their course toward the icy moon. You want to send an unarmed shuttle toward a fully armed military bunker that may still believe itself to be at war, he said. Forgive me, Miss Sato, but that does not strike me as a plan. It strikes me as a very organized way to get yourself killed. With respect, Admiral, it's the only plan that has a chance of working, Mira said. If this fleet approaches that bunker with warships, its automated defenses will read that as exactly what it was built to fear most: a hostile force converging on a critical coalition asset. It will not wait to ask who we are. It will act first, the way it was designed to. And if we send in your unarmed shuttle, and it fires anyway, Threx pressed, then you'll have lost one shuttle and gained clear proof that no other approach would have worked, Mira said evenly. But Admiral, I do not think it will fire. Not immediately. Command installations like this were built with layered protocols. Before lethal force, there are verification steps, communication windows, chances to identify friend from foe. It's not a mindless weapon. It's a system built by careful people, meant to be reasoned with by someone who knows the right words. Threx studied her for a long moment, then looked to Elena, as if seeking some second opinion he could trust more easily. And you, Captain Voss? You have known this woman for 3 days. Do you trust her judgment enough to stake more lives on it? Elena thought about the vault door on Kessig, about the tired, honest eyes that had opened after 10,000 years of darkness, about the steady way Mira had reached out to Dale, instead of raising a weapon against him. She thought about how easily fear could have turned this entire situation into exactly the kind of tragedy the ancient vault's builders had feared enough to bury their secrets on a nameless moon. I trust her, Elena said simply. And I'm going with her. Dale, standing quietly near the back of the bridge, stepped forward as well. So am I. If there's any chance someone in that bunker recognizes my voice, or my codes, it might buy us the seconds we need. Threx exhaled slowly through his nose, a sound that carried the particular frustration of a soldier being asked to trust a plan built entirely on hope. Very well, but the fleet holds position at maximum safe distance, and if that installation opens fire on your shuttle, we will not simply watch it happen. Is that understood? Understood, Admiral, Mira said, and thank you. The shuttle carrying Mira, Elena, and Dale approached the icy moon slowly, its old rock surface broken by deep fissures, where heat from something buried far below had melted and refrozen the ice countless times over the centuries. As they drew closer, sensors picked up the unmistakable shape of weapon emplacements hidden beneath the ice, dozens of them, all slowly rotating to track the shuttle's approach. They see us, Elena said quietly. Good, Mira said, though her hands were tight on the shuttle's controls. Means the system is active and paying attention. Dale, get ready, on my signal. They were still nearly 100 kilometers out when the comm system crackled to life on its own, and a flat, mechanical voice filled the cabin, cold and precise, utterly unlike the frightened human warmth of Dale's first transmission. Unidentified vessel, you are approaching a restricted coalition military installation. Identify yourself immediately, or be treated as a hostile combatant. You have 30 seconds to comply. Mira's jaw tightened, but her voice, when she responded, was calm and clear. This is Captain Mira Sato, Ironheart Division. Authorization Delta 79 Ironclad. I am accompanied by Lieutenant Commander Dale Reyes, Deep Strike Division. Authorization Sigma 24 Blackline. We are requesting immediate contact with Installation Command. A long pause followed, filled only with the soft hum of the shuttle's engines and the distant crackle of static. Authorization codes accepted as valid for historical personnel records. The mechanical voice finally responded. However, historical personnel records indicate both individuals should remain in stasis per standing orders, explain circumstances of unauthorized awakening, or be treated as compromised assets under hostile control. There's the layered protocol, Mira murmured to Elena, before raising her voice again. This installation's stasis network activated automatically, in accordance with standing protocol for the collapse of Coalition Central Command. I do not have unauthorized awakening. I have the natural result of the passage of time. Query your internal chronometer. How long has this installation been dormant? Another pause, longer this time. When the voice returned, something in its rhythm had changed, very slightly, as though the system itself were processing information it had not expected to need. Internal chronometer indicates a lapse time of approximately 10,173 years, the voice said. This exceeds all projected dormancy scenarios by a factor of. The voice paused again, an almost human hesitation in the gap, significant margin. Requesting clarification. Has the coalition been victorious? Mira glanced at Elena and Dale before answering, her expression carrying the weight of everything she was about to say. The coalition no longer exists, installation. It fell many thousands of years ago, along with the war it was fighting. Humanity survived, scattered and diminished, and rebuilt itself far from this system. In time, we found peace, not through victory, but through cooperation with other species. We are part of a new alliance now, one built on trust rather than fear. The war you were built to continue fighting ended a very, very long time ago, installation. There is no one left to give you new orders, because the people who built you, and the enemies they fought, are both long gone. The silence that followed felt endless. Elena found herself holding her breath, watching the tension in Mira's shoulders, aware of the weapon emplacements still tracking their small shuttle from beneath the ice below. Query. If the coalition no longer exists, and standing orders have no remaining authority to enforce them, what is this installation's current purpose? The mechanical voice asked, and for the first time, something in its tone sounded less like a weapon and more like a mind grappling, slowly and carefully, with the collapse of everything it had been built to believe. Mira closed her eyes for a moment before answering, choosing her words with the care of someone who understood exactly how much weight they carried. Your purpose, installation, is whatever you choose to make it now. You were built to protect humanity in a time of war. That war is over, but humanity still exists, still needs protecting from new dangers, still needs help rebuilding what it lost. You do not have to be a weapon anymore. You can be something else. A caretaker, a keeper of memory, a guardian who chooses peace, because the war it was fighting no longer has an enemy left to fight. The weapon emplacements beneath the ice, Elena noticed with a small, disbelieving jolt of relief, began to slowly rotate away from the shuttle, retracting back into their icy housings one by one. Request granted, the mechanical voice said finally, quieter now, almost gentle, standing down from combat readiness. Initiating full system diagnostic and reassessment of operational parameters. Captain Sato, Lieutenant Commander Reyes, permission to dock is granted. This installation awaits further instruction, and another pause, longer this time, filled with something that might almost have been relief, if a machine could feel such a thing. Welcomes the end of the war. Elena let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding, and beside her, Dale slumped back in his seat, running a shaking hand over his face. Mira remained still for a long moment, staring out at the icy moon ahead, before finally allowing herself a small, tired smile. That, she said softly, is how you end a war that everyone forgot was still being fought. The weeks that followed brought changes that rippled far beyond the quiet star system, where Kessig's forgotten vault had first opened its doors. More signals were found and answered, some belonging to soldiers like Mira and Dale, confused and grieving but ultimately willing to listen. Others belonging to automated systems like the command bunker, slowly guided away from their old, dangerous purpose and towards something new. Not every awakening went smoothly. There were tense standoffs, moments where fear nearly won out over patience, moments where the old instincts of a desperate, cornered species nearly turned tragedy into disaster. But each time, it was Mira, and increasingly Dale beside her, who stepped forward first, unarmed and honest, carrying the simple, powerful message that the war their ancestors had fought so hard and so viciously to survive was finally, truly, over. The Alliance Council, shaken but ultimately moved by what they had witnessed, voted to establish a new program, not a weapon, not a military asset, but a place where humanity's awakened soldiers could be welcomed, supported, and given the chance to build new lives in a galaxy that had, in the 10,000 years since their sleep began, learned to value cooperation over conquest. Mira was asked to lead it, and after a long moment of consideration, standing on the deck of the Wanderer's Hope, with Elena and Silana at her side, she accepted. "You know," Elena said one evening, months later, as the two of them watched the stars from the ship's observation deck, "when we found that vault, I thought we were opening a door to the past. Something dead and buried, waiting to remind everyone why humanity used to be feared." Mira was quiet for a moment, watching the slow turn of distant stars. "And now? Now I think we opened a door to something else," Elena said. "Not the past humanity used to be. The future it gets to choose to become, if enough people are brave enough to reach out instead of striking first." Mira smiled, the tired, worn smile of a soldier who had fought a war that ended before she woke, and found, against every fear she carried into that cold stasis chamber, something worth waking up for after all. 10,000 years asleep," she said softly, "and I finally understand what my old commanders always used to say, back before any of this began. The hardest battle humanity ever fights isn't against an enemy fleet, or an ancient weapon, or even a war that never seems to end." She looked at Elena, her eyes steady and warm, despite everything they had both seen. "It's the battle to choose peace, even when every old instinct says to be afraid. We won that battle today. And Elena, I think, for the first time in longer than I can measure, humanity is finally starting to win it for good." Far below them, on the quiet gray surface of Kessig, the ancient vault stood open to the stars, no longer a warning carved into cold metal, but a doorway, one that humanity, alien and human alike, had walked through together, and left open behind them, so that whatever came next would never again be forgotten. The end.